You'd never guess it, but ancient Chinese peasants were growing superfoods long before the word existed. These 5 crops fed empires, healed bodies, and survived brutal winters without fertilizers, irrigation, or fancy tools. Today, we've nearly forgotten them, but here's the twist. They might be exactly what we need to fix modern farming. The future? It's hiding in the dirt. Starting off, we have a forgotten grain that once built dynasties and healed bodies. 1. Job's tears. If you wandered through a southern Chinese field centuries ago, you'd likely spot something strange growing beside the rice. Tall, grass-like stalks with pale, teardrop-shaped seeds hanging in clusters. That wasn't some ornamental weed. It was Job's tears, a forgotten grain that once kept millions of people alive. Unlike modern grains that demand constant pampering, Job's tears thrives on neglect. It grows in poor soil, survives drought, and shrugs off pests like it's got something to prove. That made it a favorite among ancient peasants, especially in regions where rice or wheat just wouldn't cooperate. But this crop didn't just survive, it nourished. Job's tears is gluten-free, high in protein, packed with fiber, iron, and magnesium, and contains antioxidants that modern nutritionists are only now catching up to. Traditional medicine used it to treat inflammation and digestive issues, but for the average farmer, it was simply food that filled bellies and kept families going. The beauty of Job's tears was its versatility. You could boil it into porridge, grind it into flour, steep it into tea, or toss it into a stew. It didn't matter if you were a monk, a merchant, or a mother trying to stretch the week's meals. It had a place in every kitchen. So why did we forget it? Because modern farming didn't make room for crops that grow slowly or look different. Grains became industrial, uniform. Job's tears didn't fit the mold, but maybe now's the time to bring it back. In a world looking for climate-resistant crops and alternative grains, this ancient staple might just be the future in disguise. It's hearty, it's healthy, and it's been patiently waiting in the background for centuries. Maybe it's time we let it grow again. Next, we have a root so dependable it practically grew itself too. Chinese yam. Beneath the surface of ancient Chinese farms, a quiet miracle was growing. Long, pale, and sticky when sliced, Chinese yam was the kind of root that didn't just feed you, it fixed you. While everyone today is obsessed with sweet potatoes or ginseng, this humble tuber once did both jobs and more. Chinese yam grows like it's on a mission. Plant a small piece, walk away, and months later you'll find a thick, nutrient-packed root stretching deep underground. It doesn't ask for much, just some well-drained soil and a bit of time. In poor, mountainous regions where rice struggled, this was the go-to crop for peasants who needed calories without a fuss. But food was just the beginning. Chinese yam was a cornerstone of traditional healing. It helped with digestion, energy, and even respiratory issues. In times of illness or famine, it became a lifeline. Modern studies back this up. It's been shown to support blood sugar balance and reduce inflammation. And that sticky coating, it's full of mucilage that soothes the gut. The yam's versatility made it a staple. It could be boiled, stir-fried, added to stews, or dried for long-term storage. Sweet or savory, rich or poor, everyone ate it. It was the kind of food that slipped quietly into every kitchen and stayed there for generations. But in the age of supermarkets and processed carbs, Chinese yam slowly disappeared from daily diets. It didn't have the marketing power of rice or the flash of imported potatoes. It looked weird. It felt slimy. And that was enough for people to pass it by. And yet, it still grows, mostly unnoticed, in southern gardens and mountain villages. It's tough, dependable, and good for your body. In a world full of overhyped superfoods, maybe this forgotten root deserves another look. Third, we have a bold, fast-growing herb that flavored ancient kitchens and cured common cold. 3. Perilla. If you've ever tasted something minty, spicy, and oddly comforting in a bowl of noodles or a wrap of grilled meat, it might have been perilla. But centuries ago, in the dirt of rural Chinese farms, Perilla wasn't a trendy garnish. It was a hard-working plant that fed, healed, and didn't know how to quit. Perilla grows like it has something to prove. Once it takes root, it spreads fast, sometimes too fast. It doesn't care about fancy soil or spacing rules. It'll pop up along footpaths, fence lines, even your compost heap. And ancient Chinese farmers loved it for exactly that. You didn't need to coddle it. It just showed up and got to work. Every part of the plant had a purpose. The leaves? Stir-fried, steeped into tea, or wrapped around meat. The seeds? Pressed for oil or toasted for seasoning. Even the stems were pickled or tossed into broths. In hard times, Perilla filled in the gaps when other greens failed. In good times, it added flavor to just about everything. But this wasn't just about taste. Perilla was a quiet medicine chest. Traditional healers used it to treat colds, nausea, and anxiety. Today, we know it's loaded with omega-3s, rare for a plant, plus antioxidants and anti-allergy compounds. So what went wrong? It's strong. Too strong for modern farming tastes. Perilla doesn't play nice in rows or packaging. It smells weird to some. It reseeds like a weed. And so, as agriculture industrialized, Perilla was politely shown the door. Yet, in a time when people pay a fortune for supplements and imported seeds, this scrappy little herb is still growing wild, just waiting for someone to remember its worth. It's bold, it's messy, but it might be one of the most useful plants we ever forgot. Fourth, we have the original survival grain that fed China for over 7,000 years, or foxtail millet. Before rice ruled the paddies of China, there was foxtail millet, the unsung hero of ancient farming. It's not glamorous, it doesn't cook fast, and it won't win any Instagram awards. But for over 7,000 years, this little grain was the backbone of Chinese agriculture. It didn't just feed people, it built dynasties. Foxtail millet grows where most crops throw in the towel. Dry hillside? It's fine. Thin, rocky soil? Still fine. It matures quickly, often in just 2 months, and shrugs off drought like it's part of the plan. For peasants working unforgiving land, it was a godsend. No irrigation systems? No problem. This crop was the original minimalist. Nutritionally, foxtail millet is a powerhouse. It's gluten-free, high in iron and magnesium, packed with fiber, and gentle on blood sugar. It's the kind of food that works quietly in the background, keeping you healthy without making a fuss. In ancient China, it was boiled into porridge, fermented into wine, or ground into flour. Emperors offered it to the heavens. Farmers offered it to their children. The oldest known remains of foxtail millet come from the Sichuan site, dating back to 6000 BCE. That means people were cultivating this grain before the invention of writing. It supported entire cultures along the Yellow River long before rice took center stage. Millet was dependable, cheap, and essential. So what happened? It didn't scale well. Modern farming equipment prefers big uniform grains. Wheat and corn took over the plains. Millet was left behind, seen as old-fashioned or inconvenient. But here's the thing. With climate change threatening water supplies and modern grains struggling under pressure, foxtail millet's rugged independence suddenly feels very modern. It doesn't need saving. It just needs remembering. This isn't a backup grain. It's a comeback story waiting to be told. And finally, we have a spiky, water-grown oddity that once thrived in flooded fields. 5. Water caltrop. At first glance, you'd never guess it's food. Black, spiky, and shaped like a miniature bull's head, the water caltrop looks more like a medieval weapon than a staple crop. But for centuries, this strange aquatic plant quietly fed entire regions of southern China, especially in flood-prone areas where other crops simply drowned. Water caltrop grows in shallow ponds, lakes, and flooded rice paddies. It floats serenely on the surface, spreading glossy green leaves like lily pads. Beneath, the fruit matures underwater, tough, horned pods that farmers harvested with nets or by hand. For ancient Chinese peasants, especially those near the Yangtze River, it was a reliable seasonal food that thrived exactly where rice struggled. Once boiled or roasted, The inside of the water caltrop is starchy, slightly sweet, and surprisingly mild, something between a chestnut and a water chestnut. It could be eaten fresh, dried, or even ground into flour. During autumn festivals, it was a beloved treat, especially around the Mid-Autumn Festival when baskets of caltrops appeared alongside mooncakes. It wasn't just a snack. Traditional Chinese medicine prized it for its cooling properties, using it to treat fevers and promote detoxification. And in a time before refrigeration, its hard outer shell made it easy to store for weeks. So why did we forget it? Blame modern agriculture's obsession with efficiency. Water caltrop requires manual harvesting, can't be easily machine processed, and looks too weird for supermarket shelves. Plus, in a world where we expect food to be instantly edible, this horned nut needed a little effort, something modern diets rarely allow. Yet, in an era of rising water levels and climate instability, the idea of a floating crop that thrives in floods feels less odd and more essential. Water caltrop wasn't just weird, it was genius, and we might need it again. Now, these 5 crops aren't just relics of the past, they're answers to the problems of today. Climate-proof, low-maintenance, and nutrient-rich, they fed generations before us and could do it again. If we're smart, we'll stop ignoring them. Hit subscribe for more forgotten wisdom and drop a comment. Would you grow one of these in your backyard?